Welcome, everybody, to the pilot episode of this dual movie podcast thing. I love this trash / I love this treasure. But before we get into that, I'm your host, Josh Fiser. With me today to talk about a very special bad movie is Tanner Randall, host of the Nerdesota. Sorry. I got those portmanteaus.
It's tough.
Yes,
it's totally tough.
It's very hard to come up with a good podcast name, and even like when you because that's clever, Nerdesota, but also like it's a little wordy.
Correct. Trust me, and that is the best one we came up with when we were sorting it out.
Oh God. But yeah, how are you doing?
Well, I'm in quarantine, so the world's on fire and everything's terrible. But besides that, I'm all right.
All right, good. And we watched two very interesting movies today, both interesting in their own ways, but they kind of interlapped. But first, we'll talk about this portion. This episode is an I love this trash episode, and what that means is, so basically, I've listened to a lot of bad movie podcasts, Flophouse, How Did This Get Made, stuff like that. And I enjoy that stuff, but I do feel like there's a lot of negativity with those, like especially since they don't differentiate between good, they usually do a mix of so bad it's good and just plain bad movies. So I just thought, you know what, I just want to celebrate the bad movies that we get enjoyment from, or bad movies that were thought of to be bad at the time that taking a closer look may have been unfairly maligned. So that's the general concept of this podcast, is to actually enjoy watching bad or perceived bad movies. So that's basically it.
Yeah, especially with this we watched that I watched with you, the Plan 9.
Yes.
I feel like the maybe a good movie is important. Because I enjoyed watching it the most I've ever enjoyed watching it on this current run, but it's bad.
Yeah. Well, and there, we'll get right into it. I decided for the inaugural episode of I Love This Trash to do what is widely considered to be the godfather of the so bad it's good movie, kind of the movie that before Troll 2 and before The Room and before Birdemic was pointed out as that is the definition of a so bad it's good. And we're of course talking about Ed Wood's classic Plan 9 from Outer Space.
It is safe to state that the grandchildren of some of the people in this dinner will not be born on Earth. They come from the bowels of hell, a transformed race of walking dead, zombies guided by a master plan for complete domination of the Earth. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Starring the most nightmarish cast ever, Bela Lugosi, the seductive Vampira, and Tor Johnson as the Walking Dead.
Turn off your electro gun! No! No! Stop it, Dennis!
I can't get it, it's jammed!
Stop it, you fool!
Bullets bounce off their bodies. Rockets, missiles, jets cannot stop their death ships. What earthly power can stop this terror? For a glimpse of things to come, see this blast of screen suspense. For it could be happening right now.
And yeah, I wanted to watch this again. I don't remember the last time I've seen the movie as a movie. I've revisited the Riff Tracks live event they did for it quite a bit. Yeah, which is hilarious, as always. But
it's the most enjoyable way to experience this movie, in my opinion, still. Yes, but like I said, I found a lot I really liked this time. Actually, both times I went through it here in the last 24 hours.
I feel like we're gonna, we have a lot to talk about doing that, because it's kind of weird in that the plot. You say the plot, and it's definitely B movie material. The plot of the movie is aliens from outer space implement a Plan 9, to resurrect Earth's dead to do their bidding.
All three of them.
Yes. And we'll get into the aliens that we meet. But honestly, like, for a B movie, that's actually a really great premise. And even for like a very low budget thing could work. I think you can make a serious remake of Plan 9 like today.
They did in 2016.
Oh yeah, I saw that there was one, and I think I was about to click on that on, I think, Amazon, but it's just like, yeah, they did that, but I haven't seen it. Is it like a series, or is it?
I watched this movie on Tubi because it was free and I'm cheap. Right. But it's this version of it's also on Tubi, and I did not watch it, and I'm going to. Like, I saw it was on there. It seems to be the same plot. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to add that to my queue. That is a thing I'm going to watch in the near future. I can't imagine it's good.
Yeah, I think they if I'm just going to predict that they're going to go with the kitschy aspect. They're going to emphasize those more, or maybe. Well,
and it's just based off the stills, it has like that modern Michael Bay color palette that I'm not a huge fan of, like the orange kind of hue to the whole thing. And it looks like there was a lot of stuff in bunkers, and I'm like, this movie visually doesn't look any at all something I would enjoy, which is saying something after watching Plan 9, which I loved visually looking at, which is poorly put together.
Well, and any remake of a movie that is famous for being terrible probably isn't going to get like the sincere remake. I think people are going to do it as a throwback to that generation, and not really make a quote unquote actual movie. But anyway,
sure.
Yeah, but anyway, let's get into the movie. Of course, this is Ed Wood's kind of his masterpiece. Like, I've seen maybe a handful of other Ed Wood movies, and they're all pretty slow paced. They're all like, they got a lot going on, but they don't have. This definitely seems like his passion project. This seems like his, of course, I'm making this comparison in several different ways. His Citizen Kane. You know what I mean?
Especially with what he went through to get this made. Like, he lied, cheated, deceived his way to like getting this movie made because of how badly I want to make this movie. Yes. This is my art. I will do whatever it takes to make this product. And I think that's part of the legend of this movie, is how it came to be, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely one of those things where the making of it is as interesting as, what the final product is. You have more of a relationship with Ed Wood than I think I do. I enjoy his stuff. I enjoyed the Tim Burton movie. I like watching the stuff, but the way you were talking to me a while ago, you seem to like know him a little better.
A little bit. Now, I'll admit I'm a huge fan of the movie Ed Wood. The Tim Burton directed, was that 95, 96? Like,
something like that, yeah.
It's my favorite Tim Burton movie, like, by a mile. Like, it's not even, nothing else is even close to that one for me for Tim Burton films. Mm-hmm. And it is largely accurate, but obviously it's a movie, so there's a lot of liberties and stuff that they take. But in high school, when I discovered Ed Wood and got like, that was one of my early, like, wait, am I a movie kid? Is this like my thing? Do I just like movies? Ed Wood was one of my first ones on that, so I did fall into that wormhole of like reading about him and getting like, why is this a thing? Because I grew up watching this schlocky movies. My dad is big into this stuff. My dad's a trauma kid, so like we grew up watching all the bad movies. This was just always on in my house, like as a child, just the original. So like this movie is like a classic to me, but like not in a good way, in that it was on TV when I was a kid. I just remember it being around my entire life.
Oh yeah, and we all have movies like that, especially people, kids of our generation, where home entertainment was like just starting to be the norm, and you'd usually have like the 10 or so VHSs that you owned and you watched all the time.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But yeah, I think and a part of like what fascinates people about this is the mythos of Ed Wood. And of course, I can't myself speak to the accuracy of it. I have heard certain things, especially about his relationship with Bela Lugosi. Lugosi's kids have come out and said that Ed Wood basically used him more or less, but
he took a doped up dying old man and functionally took advantage of him.
Yeah. And that's an unfortunate thing that most likely I mean, like, if we're gonna look at like how aging stars get treated. I mean, I'm reading about right now Nichelle Nichols of Star Trek there's talk of her being elder abuse done to her. You also think apparently allegedly the same thing had happened to Stan Lee towards the end of his life. Like, these kind of things happen. You find somebody who's, and especially in the case
it's happening to Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So he says.
The whole Johnny Depp thing is kind of a mess, and I don't feel qualified to speak on it in too much length.
Not much other than interesting, just because he was Ed Wood in the Burton movie. So it's like, oh yeah, now he's making claims that he's getting abused and stuff like this.
Right? Yeah.
Circle.
Yeah. I'd have to look into that more. Towards the end of Lugosi's life, he was a heroin addict, as depicted in the movie. And you can definitely see how that's very easy to manipulate and abuse. So, but anyway, let's talk about the movie in question, Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, we'd have to talk about the legacy of it, of course, and also, one thing I wanted to mention is like the reason like people are fascinated with Ed Wood is the same reason we're fascinated by somebody like Tommy Wiseau, or even James Nguyen of Birdemic Fate. Just like, as much as like the movie, the final product was strangely bad, and that's another reason like you have to love these, is because like they're bad in such unique ways, but it's because like behind it is this person who, no matter what, just went through with the bad idea that they had in their head and actually were able to pull it off and have a final product, which is something I want to announce for this show. I Love This Trash. I'm going to try my best not to punch down, as in movies that are super low budget and unless it's like a Birdemic that's famous for being a bad movie, I'm probably going to leave a lot of indie stuff alone, stuff that doesn't have at least a major star attached. So just playing.
Sure. So like not a Sharknado.
No, a Sharknado. Well, and that's another one too that's a little contentious, because it's one of those movies that I kind of feel a little iffy, mainly because it's one of those movies that tries to be a bad movie, as opposed to something like a Plan 9 that was a sincere attempt.
Honestly, it feels like something that's satire of something like Plan 9, which my love of Plan 9 is that it's a man and a group of friends, right? He knew everyone who was in this movie with him for the most part.
Yeah.
And he would film on the street without licensing, right? Like he did whatever he needed to do to get this film made.
Like
and there's something just so it's a passion project, it's a guerrilla thing, and there's something honorable, even if the art isn't good, but an artist willing to put everything into art is there's always at least something engaged with that, and that's undeniable with Plan 9.
Yeah. I will say also, like, something that fascinated me in me looking at it, you know, this time around is that it's not totally incompetent. Like, I kind of...
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, there's some good... Like I said, the plot is actually, like, you can make a genuinely good movie out of this. There's actually scenes where it's just, like, he seems to be arguing as writing the aliens, and just like arguing about like basically America's involvement militaristically, and how Earth is gonna like if they become bigger, they're going to branch off and destroy other worlds. Like there's something in that's just like, that's an interesting concept that I wish they would have actually explored more.
Which I didn't even grasp on my first watch of it this time. I actually rewatched it most because I'm like, what? I understand the Plan 9 is resurrecting the dead. Why are they doing Plan 9? And it turns out, like, the reason is just, we keep trying to signal you to say, hello, we're aliens, we would like to talk to you, and your military keeps shooting down our ships and ignoring us. So I guess we're going to summon the dead to get you guys to pay attention to us. Like, they're not even here to invade. They're technically on a peaceful mission.
Yeah.
Which blew my mind when I picked that up on my second watch today.
Basically, it's kind of the same concept from The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's almost exactly like that. Except I don't know if you're supposed to sympathize with the aliens' viewpoint, because they're so shitty and obnoxious. I don't know if you're supposed to, if Edward wants you to agree with them, or if what they're saying is bad. Like
that is honestly what I found most frustrating about the movie this time. It wasn't even that it was like a B-level movie or that was a bad movie. It was that the plot of the aliens are peaceful, and the plot of the military, the hero is still the military of this movie. So the aliens came in peace, but the movie still ends with the spaceship getting blown up and the U.S. military, like, I shot him with guns and we won. So it also is like, hey, we want to have both parts of this argument in the same story, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the opening of this movie, which is one of the best openings to any bad sci-fi movie I think I've ever seen.
I could spend 3 hours talking about this opening.
Yeah, which they have the amazing, what are they just call him Griswold, and
Griswold.
Griswold as himself, and he was a fairly well-known psychic from the area, from LA.
TV psychic, almost like a televangelist.
Yeah, and it kind of is a nice like wraparound to the movie, because they have at the beginning and the end. Even though like the first like sentence is very hard to listen because they say future.
The first like 3 sentences are just crammed with the word future so often. It's insane.
Yeah. And it's so like weird because I'm paraphrasing, but he says events like these in the future will affect us in the future, and it's just like this is.
Oh, I've got it right here. Okay, I can give it to you verbatim. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future. You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here. And now, for the first time, we are bringing to you the full story of what happened on that fateful day. We are giving you all the evidence based only on the secret testimony of the miserable souls who survived this terrifying ordeal. The incidents, the places. My friend, we cannot keep this a secret any longer. Let us punish the guilty. Let us reward the innocent. My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space?
It's definitely one of those things.
Then he goes on to say, "Oh, go ahead."
Oh well, I was just gonna say it's one of those things where I feel like that's part of auteurism is nobody editing your shit, and that's that's part of the bad part of auteurism. It's like and you know, other movie nerds come at me. I don't think Quentin Tarantino's movies have been all that great since his longtime editor Sally Memke died. So
I would agree with that. I'm an Inglourious Bastard stan, but beyond that, anything recently has not done anything for me.
yeah, and not to say that they're bad. I mean, it's still Tarantino.
They're all very good movies.
Yes, but they can all like stand to have a good chunk of them cut. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyway,
loved Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of movie could have been left on the floor.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, and so it reminds me of like a like an episode of Tales of the Crypt or some other anthology where they have like somebody introducing the story, and it feels like this could have been like an episode of an anthology TV show if they cut like 45 minutes out of it. Like,
that's what I found so interesting about the intro is he's saying future events like these, right? So what you're about to see is going to happen in the future, right? We're about to tell you, be warned, this could be our future. But then within his same intro says, these events are reported on by people who witness them. So these things that are going to take place in the future, I have witnesses. They've already seen them. And this story you're hearing is a true story that takes place in the future. Like, it's such a weird thing to say. This is a big thing that happened, and also we heard witnesses that said this happened.
Yeah, and I think that's part, and it kind of, if you think about it, like that's just kind of the thing that TV psychics do is they double talk, they double speak.
Yep.
So like much that you don't catch it, really. So it's very confusing, and you don't like call it out because it's just like you're just going with it. He's just talking so much that it's just like you can't pinpoint what to get first. But yeah, this moves on into do we go right into the like big shouldered guy's cockpit?
Yeah. The guy that's all shoulders and like a tiny little bean like, on top of it, like for a head.
Just like the blockiest person I've ever seen.
If I was going to cast a 1950 Ben Grimm, he would have gotten that role. Yeah, he is ready to be made of rock.
And that's Gregory Walcott as Jeff Trent. And it's one of those things where this is definitely one of the things you pick up on of what's bad about the movie. Because he's in a cockpit and it looks like the most community theater set. No, not even community theater. Children's.
Oh, yeah, it is middle school theater.
Yeah, yep. where the wheel is just like cut out cardboards, and there's like just a clipboard in the back.
Yeah, there's just like there's just a random curtain behind maybe a plywood wall. Like it's maybe just one piece of plywood, like with a doorway cut into it.
Yeah, well, and, you know, some of the sets actually do look good. Some of the sets look fine. You know, I think it is jarring because there's times when they'll do the set. Oh, it actually doesn't begin with the.
No, it opens on the funeral.
Yeah, and that's part of the only footage of Lugosi.
There's about 3 shots or 3 scenes that have actual Lugosi in it.
Yeah, and I think they reuse one of the shots twice. When he's like doing his whole Dracula thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a look to the camera thing that shows up literally 2 times just because it was all they had before he had passed.
Yeah. But those scenes are a little jarring because you get the Bela Lugosi footage, which is outdoors. You can definitely tell like they shot on location. And then they will cut to a set that's supposed to be the graveyard. And it's a black curtain behind everything. So you get like what is obviously like 6:30 in the evening. It's a little overcast, but it's still, you can definitely tell like it's still light out. And then you switch to what is supposed to be pitch black, I guess. It's one of the most jarring cuts you can do.
I watched on my second watch, I watched a colorized version of the movie.
Oh,
and a couple of the cemetery scenes took place during the day, supposedly. The way it was colorized, and I'm like, I did not discern if it was day or night in the actual black and white version of the movie, and I thought that was really interesting. Of like, I thought this was night. It wasn't. It was just a poorly built set.
Yeah. And by the way, top billing of this movie went to Tor Johnson, who was a wrestler, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Yes, he was a wrestler, and as well as Vampira, who was like burlesque. Did she do the whole late night movie monster thing?
Yep, she hosted that. She. It's really interesting because she's second billing on the movie, even though she has no lines of dialogue and is only seen about 3 times. Like she has maybe less than 1 minute and 45 seconds of screen time in the movie.
Yeah, and like Gregory Walcott, I think, is at least 4th billed. Like that's and he's
who I would argue is the lead of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, basically by 50 standard, it's always the square-jawed all-American dude who's not
like a military guy. He's a commercial airline pilot.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like there's a lot of like there's some military. At one point we do see the military, but for the most part it's local cops and this airline pilot dealing with the major alien invasion about to take place.
Yeah. Eventually, one guy from the Pentagon joins him, but that's about it. Like, otherwise, it's just like it's a lieutenant detective, which was my favorite phrase in the entire movie. A couple cop and this airline pilot.
Yeah, and that is not like you've been like. Why did I wonder why they just didn't like? Hey, we have these actors playing military people. Let's get them involved in other scenes. So like, I don't know. Of course, that's the way.
At one point, he gets the airline pilot gets handed a gun. And they're like, do you know how to use this? He's like, I spent 4 years as a Marine. So then the question is, well, why even have him be an airline pilot? He could have just been a Marine pilot the entire movie, and it wouldn't have changed the plot.
Yeah, and he could have flew in like a fighter jet or something like that. Like he could have like done that, and it would have made a little. But of course, like there's also the thing of I mean, this was the 50s. Pretty much everybody, every male in their late 20s, mid 30s to like 50s were in the military because World War II was not that long ago when this was made.
And I know commercial airlines were just starting to be like the new sexy thing. I know there was definitely some like, this is modern. So like, right? Like, isn't this a cool, it's like for the last 10 years, being a tech developer was like every movie has that now because it's new and sexy. It's the same idea. It's just so out of place in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. But they do, it was new, but they still had the sexism, the sexual harassment towards a stewardess, balling it
and
up
women in general.
Yes, balling it up.
I've also not treated particularly great. Modern women, one of my other favorite lines in the movie.
I love balling it up in Albuquerque. There's only. By the way, I never been to Albuquerque, but I doubt there's much more to do there than just ball it up. If you know what I mean.
I've heard you can make a healthy career selling meth there, but that's just what the TV tells me.
Yes. Yeah, so we get in. The first scene is Bela Lugosi's character.
Elvira's or Vampira's funeral.
Yes, and by the way, like you should have you ever heard of the story of how Vampiro was involved with? She wasn't just the inspiration; she was involved in getting the show Elvira going, but kind of was tricked into it. Like I think she was led to believe that it was supposed to be her show, but then and I forget her actual name, but Elvira came in and like she was kind of blindsided the day of shooting the first episode.
Yeah, I know there was some bad blood, not necessarily between the two actresses. Like studios are always the worst, especially in that era because it's all studio, everything's studio based.
Yeah.
Which is a pity. I'm glad she's in this. I mean, if you can call her being in this, she's barely there. It's weird she plays Bela Lugosi's wife, technically. Knowing that Bela Lugosi looks like he's 90 and on heroin.
Well, and but also the thing, so like also famously they replaced him with, I believe at the time, Ed Wood's wife's chiropractor.
Yep.
Which I know the movie betrays it as Ed Wood thought he looked so much like him. But I have to believe it's just like Ed Wood was just like, just get a fucking guy. We're gonna cloak his mouth anyway, the Dracula style. So like it doesn't matter.
Even the movie Ed Wood makes a joke about, because when he shows him the actor to everyone else and he has his face covered up, like, look, it's the spitting image of Bella, and one of the characters is like, if you say so. Like even they're like, no, not really, but okay, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but they don't give him many close-ups in this, which is a good idea.
His biggest scene he shot from behind. He two-handed karate chopped somebody.
Yeah, just like a lot of the like movements, like there's one Tor Johnson as zombie Tor Johnson goes up behind somebody and just kind of just swings his arms down over his shoulders to knock him out.
There even the first scene you see of Vampira, she's like behind like a tree, and it's clear she was meant to keep walking forward, but there's a tree there, and because of like how tight her corset is, like she can't like move to the side. Like she can only walk forward and backwards, so she can't like walk around this tree. So she's just stuck clawing at a tree she's stuck behind in the shot. Drove me. It was so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, and the movie. We get into the funeral, and Bela Lugosi's wife dies, and he's so heartbroken that he accidentally wanders into traffic.
With a weird off-camera screen.
Yeah. And mostly like, it seems a little weird to have that, but it's mainly because they shot that stuff. They shot those scenes not really knowing what it would be for. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to wrangle my cat. There you go. She did not go for that. Fuck, what was I? Oh yeah, they filmed those because they knew like Bella was dying. He was on his last legs, and Ed Wood just. And there's actually more footage to that, but it was supposed to be used for apparently a future Ed Wood movie.
Yes.
But Ed Wood also, something, I admire him for, and he does actually very well. There is, he's famous for using stock footage a lot in his movies, which is good. It's a cheap way to and he does that really well here, especially in the scene, the famous UFOs going the stereotypical UFOs, like silver plates on top of each other, going through Hollywood.
The classic flying saucer design.
Yeah, and apparently that was like a kit that they got that from like some kind of popular kit.
Thing you could order off the back of a penny mag.
Yeah, something like that. Something from like a comic book. But yeah, and they integrate they integrate footage of missiles being shot and cannons and stuff like that, and military stuff, and it's very I think it's done very well editing wise. It is a little
I don't think it's obviously stock footage, but it doesn't feel out of place in the movie. Like, you can tell it's stock footage, but it feels very natural in the movie. Like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's edited fairly well, and I think that's also a testament to how Ed Wood had worked up until that point. I'm just gonna check real quick if he was the editor, who was the editor on this, and Ed Wood edited this as well. So it seems to be a discipline that he had. And does a decent job. I can't say anything bad about the editing in this.
No, not at all.
Yeah, except for the fact that, like I said, it is jarring when you cut between scenes, and one is like obviously on location, and the other is obviously a set.
What I think one of the things I really appreciated as over the last couple of years gotten more into like film craft, like not just like our movie's good, but like what kind of film is being used to make a movie and all that, like the deeper nerdier stuff. But even this being filmed on reels, right, and knowing he kind of scraped together, literally like threw away all of his life's money, like he was working on the smallest budget. And it's not like digital film now where you can just film forever and you can have an infinite amount of footage. Like, he's got 8 reels. Once those 8 reels are gone, you're in. You just got to edit the movie, right? And that makes you appreciate the editing so much more when you're like, we have a limited amount of footage, make a plot out of it.
And you can like kind of excuse the acting in this, even like, I will say Tor Johnson did a better job than I thought he would when he's not a zombie. But it's still like, how are you the guy in charge of all these other cops? Like, you do still sound like time to go to bed, Tor Johnson.
Yeah, and it's a lot of, I mean, that was a Tor call. He didn't want to keep playing monsters in movies because he is a big professional wrestler, right? So he was like, I don't want to be. He kind of pulled a Batista, where like, I'd like to not get typecast anymore as playing this type of role. The difference is he also wasn't really an actor. Where Batista went to acting school and learned how to act and is delightful in everything he shows up in. There's just an active decision. Like, I keep playing the bad guy. It's not fun for me. I think it's to Ed Wood's credit to go, yeah, you're my friend. Let's write you a speaking role and make you normal and also turn you into a monster.
Yeah. Quick, like, off topic though, but does it seem like wrestlers are getting better at acting? Like, I feel like we have this new crop of wrestlers now that are actually doing well in movies, as opposed to, like, we'll say the 90s. Maybe we have a Roddy Piper or a Andre the Giant.
Was the best.
Yes.
Hulk Hogan had his movie career.
Yeah, I didn't mention him because I don't think like he was very good in any of those movies or television shows he was on.
But Three Ninjas 3.
Maybe one day we'll do the entire Three Ninjas.
You got to do Three Ninjas and sneak in a Surf Ninjas as a bonus episode.
Oh yes.
All the kid ninja movies need to be checked off on a list.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That period in the 90s, right after the Ninja Turtles, where, hey, we don't even need to just do anthropomorphic animals. We can do like just children ninjas.
I think kids just want to be ninjas. Let's just make some kids ninjas.
Yeah, exactly. But back to Plan 9. We'll say about the acting, there's some that do a terrible job, but for the most part, I think everybody's giving it their all. I will say, we talked about a little bit about the aliens at the beginning. There are only 3 characters in this. We only see 3 of the aliens. And they are Eros, Tana, and quote-unquote the ruler. And I swear to God, there was a scene where the ruler was talking to one of them, and you can see him looking down on the ground and just like, oh, he's got his lines taped down at his feet. That's what right now. Yeah. Like he is.
I actually think the alien, the actor who plays Eris, the one of the two male aliens, if I would say the main alien, he's in charge of the ship that is at Earth, turning everyone into zombies.
Yeah.
I thought he was good, like actually, like good.
It's pretty good
compared to what everyone else is giving him.
Yes, I mean he's definitely I would say kind of overacting in this, which is fine. Do it.
Yeah,
like, that's actually a plus for these kinds of movies. He does, like, his character reminds me a lot of John Travolta's character in Battlefield Earth, in so much that,
sure.
One of his main things is he's always calling humans stupid, even though he fucks up a lot in this movie.
Even now, your scientists are working on a way to harness the sun's rays. The rays of sunlight are minute particles. Is it so far from your imagination they cannot do as I have suggested?
Why, a particle of sunlight can't even be seen or measured.
Can you see or measure an atom? Yet you can explode one. A ray of sunlight is made up of many atoms.
So what if we do develop this solanite bomb? We'd be even a stronger nation than now.
Stronger. You see? You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
That's all I'm taking from you.
Get back here, you fool!
Like, there's a scene where they can't get zombie Tor Johnson to stop. And it's just, and you know, there's also the scene where he's berating Big Shoulders, and he just like, stupid minds. I've had enough of you, and he just gets punched.
He also, like, at one point, the female alien steps up to him, like steps up to the humans to like defend him, and he's like, stop defending me. Women supposed to defend men, women are to extend the species. Like, he pretty much says, no, women aren't supposed to fight, they're just supposed to make babies. Like, functionally, that's what he says.
But also, she's a general. Like, it's weird.
Yeah,
like, it's like, but she
there's some really weird, interesting gender politics of like both trying to be progressive and aggressively regressive at the same time.
Yes. And when she's like, you know, does her point, like she's making a good point. She talks about how I mean, you guys destroy other countries for your own benefit. Why can't we? Like, it's very much a good call out of American imperialism to get a little political.
It's why it's weird he like cuts her off, because she's right. Like, every weapon humans have ever created, you've used, as opposed to you've created a weapon, reviewed it ethically, and gone, we shouldn't use this weapon. Maybe this is a terrible decision. She called them out, and then the alien's like, no, don't, stop talking. Like, it's so weird because she's right.
Yeah, she's right, and she's making the best arguments for their side. And again, I feel weird because I think they're still supposed to be betrayed as the bad guys in this, even though I mean, like, okay, sure, they killed a few people, made them zombies, and those people killed other people, but you know,
but they didn't kill any of the people who became zombies.
Oh yeah, the zombie. Well, what about, I can't remember.
Well, Tor is the only one who they killed. Like, I think Vampira kills Tor, but Vampira died of natural causes, presumably. I guess the movie starts at her funeral.
Yeah.
Bela Lugosi, Hayakar.
It would be a
so,
dark
like,
backstory if Bela Lugosi just poisoned her.
Yeah, like, I do feel like I'd like to know what the story is. Is it Death Becomes Her? Like, did we just not see the rest of it?
Yeah. But yeah, I also feel one thing that's kind of great about this is that the atmosphere of the movie, like, it's a completely science fiction movie, you know, with horror elements, and they do a great job, you know, and it makes it kind of weird tonally, because one scene will be in a graveyard with a bunch of smoke and mist, and it looks like a Universal monster movie. And then you get you get the space stuff, and you know, it almost seems like a completely different movie, but I think it works well in the movie. Like, again, I think this plot could actually make a really good movie.
Yeah, I think if you you had a more clear message. I'm a big, like, what is the goal? Like, what is this movie trying to say kind of person? Yeah. And I don't feel like this movie, I feel like this movie is saying a bunch of stuff. It's just not like focusing in on one. But I do feel like if somebody took a pass at the script, I think you could turn the script into something that is clear focus and maybe even a little cutting, which is what good sci-fi is supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe like it would be great to see like all these ideas that Ed Wood put forth actually organized. Even if it like, I would just like to know Ed Wood's thought process, because I don't know where he stood politically. I know he was a cross-dresser, so he had to, deal with 1950s homophobia to some extent.
He was also a vet and pretty anti-war. Like, after going through the horrors of war, he's pretty against it.
Okay. So that definitely comes to, kind of proving what his takeaway was supposed to be with the aliens. But of course, it's he just didn't articulate that well.
And maybe that's not all him. This movie was financed by a Christian group.
Right.
A very right.
Yeah. Right.
Yep, like it's a very, and that is true. If you look at the production credits, like it is a faith-based group. So technically, this is a faith film. You could put that subgenre.
It's the 50s equivalent of those Kirk Cameron Pure Flix movies.
Yeah, like the God is Dead series. This is a prequel to all of those.
How did they make 3 movies about God is Dead?
We've made 3 so far. There will be more.
I just,
but knowing that, you can kind of understand where there's conflicting messages, and maybe that's not all Ed Wood's fault. There's also people financing his movie who unfortunately had a lot of clout over what he ended up having to do, just because like we give you $10K or whatever it was, like you kind of have to do what we tell you. You're right, that's the studio system.
Well, and also Hays Code at the time, maybe I'm getting the timeline wrong, but you got the Hays Code, and anything like supernatural has to be defeated by the end. Like it has to be portrayed as evil, specifically. So that's also a big consideration into that. But probably take this opportunity to try to talk about everything else we want to talk about before we move on to the next episode.
Cram in all our little one-offs on Plan 9.
Yeah. So what this time around was something else that you felt you saw differently?
So I know it's limited by the set. There are 2 shots where like the camera actually tracks and moves in the movie. Not 2 shots, but 2 scenes. Every time they're in the graveyard, they had a dolly track laid there, because there's almost always like a dolly shot of like the camera moving, which is nothing that happens in most of the movie. And then there's also the Criswell scene, like right at the beginning, where it like does the zoom in on him, that I absolutely love. And then he kind of stands up at the end and the lighting changes. That opening shot with Criswell, even though what he says is utter nonsense, is a very well framed and composed like shot. Yeah. But knowing so much of the other movie static, because they're doing like guerrilla stuff, really makes it interesting on like how did they optimize the spaces they were in to film the movie. So like the interior of the spaceship, all the shots, it's just a pan from left to right. So, camera's on a tripod, but they can't actually move the camera. Mm-hmm. And then you start thinking, how does that limit the actual actions the actors can do? They can't, like, move around the environment. They can't do anything. Then you start seeing the walls the actors are forced into. Then you start to get, like, I became so sympathetic with look, I've done some acting, and this would be tough. Like, all right, you need to interact with this dial over here. But you can't walk over to it because it would be out of frame. I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked, especially really appreciating low budget sci-fi films, is their ability to just grab junk and make it look sci-fi. Like there's the scenes in the landed UFO in the graveyard, where you see a bunch of like stuff, and they have it's not like a Tesla machine, but it's like a coils that have like they did a good job like scavenging stuff, which is kind of
and I'm sure that's what it was scavenging out of a junkyard or something.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like what you have to do for these kinds of movies is just grab crap that may look science fiction. I mean, have you ever seen the EKG, I think it is, reader from Ghostbusters actually shows up in several other movies because it's just like a good prop for anything. Or like
there's some of the Planet of the Apes monkey suits are still in use, right? Like,
yeah.
I think Tana Block used some of the costumes from Tim Burton's apes, like, right? Like, it's watching the newspaper one. I'm sure you're familiar with that one newspaper that shows up in like 1,000 movies because it's just like a prop paper that's on a studio lot.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, and by the way, speaking of Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, I'll have to rewatch it, but that might be a contender for this series.
It's unwatchable. I'm a huge Planet of the Apes fan, and like the whole series from the new ones all the way back to like, and that is the only one that is unwatchable. And there are some real bad older ones, but that
series?
one. I've seen bits and pieces. It used to be on Sci-Fi, and I remember watching, like, that was probably my introduction to Planet of the Apes. And then I asked my dad, what is this? And he's like, oh, we should watch the movie. And then we watched the original Clint Eastwood one. I'm like, oh, or Charlton Heston.
It's pretty much the same guy at this point.
Yeah.
When
only one of them
died,
yelled at a chair.
Yeah. When Charlton Heston died, Clint Eastwood picked up the torch of cranky Republican star.
He picked up the gun. He picked up the rifle that had left behind. The Reagan engraved rifle.
But yeah,
the one other thing I really liked about Plan 9 before we wrap it up was the lady, the wife of Big Shouldered Pilot.
Yeah,
she was sassy. She talked back. She kept getting put in her place by the other match. I hate it, but she gave so much attitude. I loved her. I thought she was great.
No, yeah, she was fantastic. She did a great job. Yeah, especially for basically what is just the wife role. But she did a good job. I mean, of course, she's also used as the damsel. But you know, again, it's the 50s. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, what are you gonna do? It's, you know, you of course also have to think of like, I mean, we live in an age where we are more aware of, you know, social structures and, you know, oppression and stuff like that. And when you go back and watch classics, you kind of have to be context. Sometimes you got to think about that. Sometimes it's just unacceptable. There are movies that are just like, this would have been racist or sexist back then.
And it's easier to be sympathetic when it's like 60 years ago, like this movie is at this point. It's tougher when you're watching a movie from like 8 or 9 years ago and like, ugh, that was only 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah. Like, I was under the impression we were cool then, but I was clearly wrong.
Well, even like farther back than that, like, I don't know if I can go back and watch Ace Ventura: Pet Detective without like seriously cringing at the Einhorn scene.
Transphobia.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
blatant.
Like, yeah, blatant, but also like this isn't like something that was unique. This is pretty much all trans discourse from the
and
from
it's
the 90s.
Surprising because specifically with Ace Ventura, the second one has some iffy stuff about race, but is kind of a little bit more watchable.
Things about race, yeah.
It's more watchable than the first one now because it's like, well, but also like the female lead of the movie is a black lady, like, and it is a person that, like, there are more good things than necessarily all of the bad things that are in it.
Yeah, there's a scene where she actually has sexual agency, where just like, okay, good. All right, this is,
and he's respectable to their culture the entire film. Like, there are jokes about it, but he overall is not like actively like the way you live your life is gross and disgusting. The whole movie, there's a couple of jokes where once I could talk Jim Carrey all day.
Yeah. Also,
what a career arc.
Yeah, I love Tommy. Or was it David Allen Greer in that one?
No, it's Tommy Davidson.
Tommy Davidson. Yes, I love him when he shows up and stuff. But back to Plan 9. We can go ahead and wrap this up. Anything else? Any closing words about the movie?
I highly recommend anybody who can. Well, you can because it's the same way I watched it. Tubi, it's free, and you can just connect it to your phone.
And I'm sure
the colorized version was fascinating.
It is always interesting to watch colorized versions, although I always do feel like I'm not watching the right thing. It's kind of like how right now there's a problem with streaming services and aspect ratios, but for movies that were before, like old movies that were originally like 4:3, they try to instead of like cutting off the sides like regular like TVs back in the day did with movies on VHS. Instead, they're cutting off the tops of classic movies that were filmed that way. So same thing with the whole colorized. I tried to watch a version of Bringing Up Baby colorized, and I kind of just couldn't do it. But for something like this,
I enjoyed.
Yeah,
I actually found the movie more watchable. I mean, it's the same movie, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a new level of engagement where I was curious to see the colors of stuff. But it was really good. And it, like I said earlier, there were scenes that I thought took place at night that now are obviously shot or at least painted to look like the day. Yeah. And was very interesting to me. So both versions of it are on Tubi. And the Riff Tracks versions are on Tubi. Right. As every version, and the 2016 Plan 9 from Outer Space is on. Look, you can get all your Plan 9. I'm not here to shill for Tubi. I'm just saying all of that content is available for free, and you can just check it out. But the color version was really interesting, and I had never seen it before. It was also a full restoration of the movie, too, so it took out a lot of the frame grain, the film grain, and it redid some of the audio. If you remember, there was like a beeping noise that drove me insane every time they're on the spaceship, where there was silence, there was like a ringing noise. That is toned down in the colorized version. I thought that was, I love the idea of different versions and edits of the movie that's not Star Wars. So it was just cool seeing the changes between the two.
They do some cool things with Metropolis and Nosferatu, like the silent movies. They usually add in a different orchestral track to them.
I love the Metropolis remaster. Yeah, it's so good.
I think that's Kino Lorber who did the most recent Metropolis release, which they always do good stuff. So
yeah.
But yeah, this movie has endured, I think, specifically because of its sincerity. One of the things
undeniable.
Yeah. One of the things that I was kind of bugged by early to mid 2010s is the whole making a movie look like a grindhouse movie, but you can definitely tell they had much more money than most grindhouse movies do. Of course it's always a parody of grindhouse movies. It's never them actually trying to make their own grindhouse type movie.
They don't put the same limits that the actual grindhouse filmmakers had. They never all right, we don't have a way to do this effect. Let's figure out a practical way to do it that costs no money at all.
Right. And also, and you said you're a big fan of Troma. I never really got into it because I do feel like most of it is them also parodying, other B movies. But I will say they are also a low budget studio, so I do feel the sincerity of filmmaking with them.
I think that's the catch with Troma, is it comes from a place of love. It is people who love bad movies that are making also kind of bad movies, but it's not satire. I do think it's sincere. We love these kinds of movies, so we're making them. That's the way I've justified my love of Troma to myself, is it's just other nerds who all right, we all grew up on these bad movies, aren't they fun? Let's make our own.
I definitely appreciate
Killer Clowns from Outer
idea.
Space. Yeah, such a good movie.
So maybe I do need to watch a little bit more Troma. I do like
a few.
I like Class of Nukem High. I will say that. And
the Toxic Avenger is a classic. I couldn't if there's any ones to watch, it's Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and
is that Troma?
A Toxic Avenger. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've seen Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which I actually do like a lot, but a lot of it's that comes from that scene where they just stop the movie, and George Clooney explains brand synergy to the whole crew.
Yep.
And then after that, the entire movie, there's like random brand placement. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think anybody who is even just interested in the film history and genre film history, this is definitely one. Of course, watch The Day the Earth Stood Still, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Blob, the things are considered sci-fi classics.
They're all good versions of what this movie kind of wishes it was.
Absolutely, those kinds of things. But Tanner, thank you again for being on for doing this. Do you want to?
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Do you want to do your plugs before we sign off?
Oh yeah. So I have a friend that a friend and I are just about to publish our podcast. We've got about 10 episodes logged. We're about to make them public. Podcast is called Nerdesota. That's Minnesota, but with the word nerd at the start. You can follow us on Twitter at Nerdesota. That's the easiest way to see when those are going to get published. It looks like it's going to be about the 2nd of September. So we'll have our link posted there. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tan Tantrum and on Twitch. I've recently gotten into twitching where I play cinematic video games, but talk about movies while I'm playing them. So if you want to talk about movies, you can watch me play video games.
All right, fantastic. And I don't have any social media set up for this podcast yet. I will have it soon. And like I said, this is going to be a pilot. So anybody watching this or listening to this, please let us know what you think and anything we can do differently, or something you'd like to, or a movie you'd like to see us cover. Thank you, Tanner, and thank you everybody for listening to I Love This Crap. I Love This Trash. God damn it. See, it's so new that I can't remember the name. Thank you everybody for listening to I Love This Trash.